Welcome to Smacky's Garage. Today we're going to be working on a few small projects on the car. We're going to be replacing the hood adjusters on the front. We're going to be replacing the cooling adapters or the coolant adapters that are on the intake manifold and the water pump. And then we're going to be fixing the fuel pressure regulator so that it's not constantly boiling off fuel. Let's get into it. On the 69 Mustang, you have two different points to adjust the hood height up in the front. You get some play in here by moving the hinge up and down, but you also have these two bumpers over here. These two bumpers can be screwed in and out. When you screw them in, they'll bring the height of the hood down. When you screw them out, they'll bring the height of the hood up, and that's how you're going to end up adjusting the front. You can see these are old on my vehicle. They're very hard, not like the new ones. And they also are covered in buff primer because I didn't take them out when I used the primer on the vehicle. It ended up getting everywhere. I also don't think this is supposed to be here. I think it's supposed to be down here. I'm going to replace these and then we're going to reset the height of the hood. The replacement one looks very similar. On this one, this nut never got tightened, so it never jammed it down into place. I'm going to try to get it close to this location and then we'll put it in place. If this jam nut was tight, you would loosen this up and then you would lift this out of place. Why there's a washer here, I don't know. I'm going to drop the new ones in, and it's a big upgrade. Okay, so now that that's in place, I'm going to take my 1/2 inch, and I'm going to tighten this jam nut down. What the jam nut does is it's pulling on the threads and making it so that it can't move back and forth. So you can see now, after this is tight, it's not wobbling around. So we're going to do that on the other side, and then we're going to check the height. Now that I have this taken out, we know that this doesn't belong in this location. It belongs down here. I'll have to look at some pictures online to double check, but probably 75% sure that's the right location. That's where the other one is. I need to find out what's the right bolt, so I'll look at some pictures online, and then we'll move that to that location. For now, we're going to put this back together. So I'm seeing that it's sitting a little bit low on this side, so I'm loosening this up and bringing it up more. So while down here working on the bumpers, that one, I made an adjustment to the latch down here. The bar up there wasn't fully latching in the right location. So to adjust this, I didn't video it, but it's simple as moving these two bolts here, loosening them, and then moving it around. For me, there's a lot of play in it, so you can move it left, you can move it right, you can move it down, you can move it up. I had to move it left some and then more down so that it catches perfectly. So now that I'm in the right location, I'll take this and I'll just tighten this nut. It's hard to see, but the location is pretty level with where the fender is, so I'm happy with this. Now, let's work on the cooling system. For the longest time, I've had the wrong parts in here and up here. So both of these are going to get replaced. There was actually never a gauge that was on the top here. I just put this in because before I had the car on the road, I didn't have a place to measure temperature on it. None of the gauges were hooked up. So this allowed me to get it going, get it running, and to check to make sure everything was okay. So now we're going to go ahead and we can start by removing this piece here. While I'm at it, I think I'm going to disconnect this tube and I'm going to run it underneath the upper radiator hose and into this piece down here because it feels a little bit tight and it's probably the right location for it. So I know upon taking this out, coolant's going to go everywhere. Okay, so I'm going to remove this tube, lift it up higher, put it up here so that it's above the intake manifold, and then I am going to pull this out, replace it quickly. The container down there to catch any loose coolant, and off we go. So I'm hoping that as I turn this, you can see everything's turning, hoping that the tube will break free, which it's not. So loosening it up, it was able to break free and up. Now that's leaking too. Same process with this one. All right, not leaking. All right, so it's not leaking because it's above everything else. Let's go ahead and take this fitting off, then we'll spin this around. This is not going to fit. So when I want to put the original part back in, or something like the original, the fitting is, this is too large of a pipe thread to fit in that hole. So I'm either going to need to upsize it, which won't work, or put the original part back on, put the elbow back on. So for now, I'm going to put the original part back on. Yeah, so if you look at these here, obviously this one is bigger than this. It's not going to fit in. This is an aftermarket intake, so it's a Blue Thunder intake. I'll need to get the right part to do it, but for now, at least we see what needs to be done. So I'm going to lightly put this back, pipe this in, and then we're going to work our way on the fuel. Right now I know we're boiling off the fuel here when the car is off, which is a problem because it makes it harder to start when it's hot. So what I'm going to need to do is space this out from this head here. What I found out is to do that, we're going to end up using nylon spacers, and we're going to put them behind this, and we're going to push this off by maybe about a 1/4 inch. To be able to do that, I need to take the AN fitting off of this because nothing is easy. And we're going to have to space that bracket out from the engine. So let's go ahead and take this apart. The car's been sitting all winter, hasn't started, hasn't spun at all. So that means that there's not going to be any fuel dumping around or flushing around the carburation system. So this is going to be a cleaner project than I thought. Okay, you can see the bracket here that we're working on. Now I can take that bolt off. Okay, so we're going to put this together. The Holley fuel pressure regulator sits here on the bracket. This was bolted directly against the head with a lock washer in between it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to add one of these nylon washers to it, and we're going to space it out. I'm going to try it without the lock washer first to see how it goes. It looks like there's enough thread engagement there for me to use it without an issue, especially since there's not going to be any load on it. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put this back together on the car and set up exactly like this. I could put the lock washer here, but it could fit. Let's put the lock, but I'd be reducing the number of threads out here. I'm going to try putting the lock washer on. We'll see what happens. Okay, so here's the setup. It's bolt, lock washer, nylon spacer, thread. We'll go ahead and tighten it in place, see how everything lines up. All right, you can see now we're pretty well spaced off. So we got a good amount of room. We'll take a temperature measurement of this in the spring when I get the car running, and we'll see how it did. Thanks for tuning in to Smacky's Garage today, the home of incomplete projects. One of these days we'll actually fully complete something that we set off to do in a weekend and not have to wait for more parts. So as always, if you made it this long, thanks for tuning in to Smacky's Garage. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.